Hey, good evening. Welcome to the 38. I'm Bill Boshears. This is the Scizone. Before we go any further, let me do this. I want to apologize to everybody that showed up at the movie. I didn't. You may well know that, and that's my fault. You see, I have a tendency to write things down on a calendar. Duh. I wrote it in the wrong day. So I called the station. I said, what time are we supposed to be there? And they said, Bill, it was last night. I apologize. It's my fault entirely. Next time, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about a thing. Thank you for joining me, though, anyway. Tonight, a special guest, and he's beeping. They're beeping me already to tell me he's here. It's Jim Fitzer. Jim, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I am, Bill. Pleasure.
Hey, thank you for joining me tonight, Jim.
Always.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Fitzer is a gentleman who put something together called 911scholars.org. You need to go there. You need to take a look at that website tonight. Jim, we've got a couple of clips that we're going to play later on, but let me, for the benefit of our audience, how did you get started with this, Jim?
Well, I found myself in the midst of a group of rather talented people on an email list discussing all these things about 9/11 back in December of 2005. I had been drawn into it by David Ray Griffin, who is perhaps the leading representative of the 9/11 Truth Movement. He's published 5 or 6 books now, and he's extremely good. And he wrote me and suggested that we might collaborate on a book on JFK and 9/11. And I started thinking about it and putting together, comparisons between the cases and ways in which they're similar, and how the principles of scientific inquiry could lead you to discover the truth. And when I found myself in the middle of this group, it seemed to me it might be a good idea to create a loose affiliation of these individuals that could present lectures, sponsor conferences,
Sure.
maintain a website, those sorts of things.
That brings me to another point. Before I forget it, next weekend, you've got a big conference. Where's that going to be? Tell us about it.
It's going to be at the Radisson Madison, and I've got 13 outstanding speakers, Bill. It's going to be terrific. We're looking at all the controversial issues in 9/11, such as whether it's possible that unconventional weapons were required to bring down the Twin Towers and destroy the World Trade Center, whether the video fakery might have been involved in misleading the American people about the planes hitting the Twin Towers, and then the way in which the neocon agenda 9/11 fit into a broader scheme of things that may even involve plans for depopulating the world, reducing it from 6 billion to maybe some fraction of that. I got outstanding people in all these categories. They include a fellow named Ace Baker, who's a musical composer. Actually, he's the co-composer for American Dragster on ESPN right now. He's been doing studies about videos because of his digital expertise.
Yes.
Kevin Barrett, who is a leading 9/11 activist in the world today, Bill. He's the author of Truth Jihad, co-editor of 9/11 and American Empire, and the founder of the Majuka Net, which brings together Christians, Muslims, and Jews in pursuit of the truth about 9/11. I got Bob Petrakis, who's a political science professor at Columbus State Community College. He's published 13 books, including Star Wars, Weather Modification, and Full Spectrum Dominance. 13 books, and he's won 13 journalism awards. The guy's an expert on polling and frauds at voting, and he's going to talk about high-tech weapons, how the military's development is far ahead of what we know. Barbara Honegger, who is at the Pentagon, is going to be there. She's a National Security Affairs graduate. She's the author of the Pentagon Attack Papers. She's the author of October Surprise, the first book that talks about the origins of Irangate. She's outstanding. Jerry Liepard, an activist civil rights trial lawyer, will be there. He's from Connecticut. He had the brilliant idea of bringing a kind of legal action against the National Institute of Standards and Technology under the Data Quality Act because their conclusions contradict their evidence. Jim Marrs, famous guy in JFK, he wrote the book Crossfire, which was the foundation, one of the books for JFK's, for Oliver Stone's movie, Bill.
Right.
And now he's published 2 books on 9/11, Inside Job and the Terror Conspiracy,
Absolutely.
which he co-authored, by the way, with Barbara Honegger. Then there's Lauren Murray, who's an independent expert, worked in 46 countries as a professional geoscientist. She has been an expert witness on depleted uranium for the Canadian Parliament. She's published on exotic weapons, HARP, weather modification, tectonic warfare, mind control.
It sounds to me like, Jim, you got everybody except Bush and Cheney.
Well, I'll tell you, and we'd like to get Bush and Cheney right where they belong, which is in a very unpleasant, uncomfortable place, Bill.
I'll tell you what.
Morgan Reynolds, he was a former chief economist in the Department of Labor in the Bush administration.
Yeah.
He's the author of 6 books. He's been studying the role of the aircraft on 9/11. Doug Roque is the former director of the U.S. Army Depleted Uranium Project. He's got a military career spanning 4 decades, including combat duty in Vietnam and Gulf War. Dave Von Kleist was among the first to spot problems with.
Yes.
He put out he's on the Power Hour with his wife Joyce Riley. He put out the DVD in plain sight, and he's got a new one now, Bill.
I got it in front of me, thanks to you.
The Ripple Effect, yeah, very nice piece. Alfred Weber is an author, lawyer, futurist. He was he is a judge at the Kuala Lumpur International War Crimes Tribunal. He's the international director of the Institute for Cooperation in Space.
Wow.
He and Lauren Murray have proposed a Citizens 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal. Judy Wood may be the most qualified scientist studying 9/11 in the world. She has a BS in civil engineering with a focus on structural and MS in engineering mechanics, which is also known as applied physics. PhD in materials engineering science. Bill, we're going to cover the bases.
I'll tell you what, you've got enough there to do it. Thanks to you, I got a hold of Von Kleist, and I've got a new one. We've got a clip we're going to play from that. Is there a soundtrack on that? Can Jim hear that soundtrack if we play that clip? Can we? All right. Well, I'll put. Let me do this. We've got a lot of things to get to tonight. Why don't I put you on hold so you can hear it, Jim? And we'll be right back with this. Don't go, Jim. Stay right there.
You got it, Bill.
Now,
just squeeze in. Go to 911scholars.org. You can find the full program and all the speakers' bios.
Oh, okay. And by the way, I want to come to that. I'll tell you. Let's just hold that. Let's hold the clip for a second. Here's what I want to do. Jim, on your website, folks, you got to go to this website. He has, pardon me, the videos that you've never seen in the news. And here's the startling part of it. You have to understand that all of this happened. We go along with that. But when you find somebody who connects the dots and puts them in a timeline, I'll tell you something right now I bet you didn't know. Jim has on his website pictures of thousands of cars that are how far from the impact zone? How far are they?
Well, those are up to a mile to a mile and a half, Bill. They're quite a ways away from the Twin Towers, and they were weird. They have weird effects.
Weird
we
effects.
refer to them as toasted cars.
Now, I'll explain this to you. On his website, you can go to it, 911scholars.org. There is a video clip, and you literally see. I looked at it. I'll bet you I looked at it 20 times, Jim. You literally see it standing there like this, my finger being a steel column that literally turns to dust and disappears right in front of your eyes.
That's part of the core column of the North Tower, Bill.
The North Tower. Now, that's not half of it. Wait till you see the cars. He has pictures of them on there. That the paint, something. Is it? I don't know what it is. There's no paint. It was burned completely off. The glass is out of it, completely destroyed, except the interior of the car is untouched.
Yeah, and the engine block may be completely destroyed.
Exactly. There's a fire truck that has the whole front end. It's gone.
And you're talking about Judy Wood at Cooper Union, Bill. If you click on that, you go to all these videos and photographs and all that.
Oh, man. And it's astounding what you have not seen. You say, Bill, are you trying to hype this so that it means something? I'm just trying to get you to look at the information so that you can make a better judgment call, because there's going to be a judgment call on this. Would you agree, Jim?
Oh, yes.
We're going to take a pause in the action. We'll be right back. Don't go away. We've got more of this, and you too, right here. Hey, I'm back. Bill Boshears in the Scizone here Saturday night. Thank you for joining me. My guest, Jim Fitzer, he is the founder and director of 911scholars.org. You need to go there. Why? Because it's a one-stop shopping deal, and there's plenty of links there to more information. And this is what has happened. Jim, it's become a real quagmire. If you just suddenly start and you don't have a good place to start, and let me tell you what I mean by good place to start. You've got to have somebody that spent some time validating this, somebody that you can trust. Jim and his group is that. These are scholars for 9/11, are they not?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's actually, the name of the organization is Scholars for 9/11 Truth, and the website is 911scholars.org.
And I commend you for what you've put together there. I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to play that first tape, the first clip that we had. It's the introduction to this. And folks, this is sort of an overview of where we're going. Right after this, Jim has agreed we're going to talk about something that is really on the edge of this. You may not have heard of it. It's called the Northwood Documents. Would you guys run that clip for me, please? No, the intro. Just do there it is. You got it up.
I have a message for our military. Be ready. I've called the armed forces to alert, and there is a reason. The hour is coming when America will act, and you will make us proud.
At 8:46 on the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world would forever be changed, and America would forever be altered. A wave of patriotism swept across our country, and the drumbeat of war was heard from our nation's heartland to countries a half a world away. With a war on terror declared, a nation would find itself in an uphill battle that would eventually lead to the destruction of civil liberties and the establishment of a military driven to conflicts based upon political lies and fraudulent official reports. We now begin our investigation into the events of September 11th. What were you told happened that day?
There are some very anguish-ridden people in the world, and they decided to attack us.
2 planes were hijacked by terrorists, and they were crashed into the World Trade Center.
2 planes flew into 2 skyscrapers and destroyed them.
Part of the building was just smashed in and had been burnt, and just chaos.
From all the film footage that I've seen in the past 6 years, it was 2 commuter jets.
My initial reaction to September the 11th was that it was as advertised, that these aircraft had been hijacked, that it was a big terrorist operation, that we were attacked by Muslim extremists. I kind of just believed the initial story. Was in a state of shock. As reports came out through the news and some alternative news sources that I had been subscribing to, there were some things that were reported by credible people at these accident sites that did not agree with my professional training and my background.
Very strong. Boom! An explosion so hard that pushed us upwards.
He was the last guy pulled out. He was on sub-level 2, and he heard a bomb. And he was omitted from the 9/11 report.
I've looked at various hypotheses about what might have happened with the plane hits on the World Trade Center, and frankly, I haven't come to a firm conclusion. I do think that some of the pod images are suggestive of the possibility of a plane switch. I'm not convinced that that's the case, however.
What you've just seen is an introduction to this particular 9/11, the ripple effect. Jim put me onto this. Jim, if people don't have a place to get information, they really are. They can't make a good decision about it. And in this piece, it shows people being interviewed on the street, and they really don't know. They don't know the evidential facts of this thing, which is frightening when you ask the American people. And that's just the way the government wants it. I happen to believe that. Jim, you mentioned something too while we're off the air there about a new fakery that they put out. What was it?
Well, 2 or 3 things I'd like to mention here, Bill. One is everyone who cares about the war in Iraq ought to understand its origins in 9/11, because 9/11 was the event that was used as the fuse to precipitate these explosions, these invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, which are in violation of international law, the UN Charter, and the U.S. Constitution. Now, we were shown a lot of images on 9/11 through television.
Yes.
And I have been following research that's been going on in this field, and there's a new set of studies called September Clues, C-L-U-E-S.
Uh-huh.
We have them archived, Bill. It's 6 parts. I have it archived right there on the homepage for 911scholars.org.
Okay.
And what they show is that there was a whole lot going on that day. Now, I used to think it was at least faintly absurd to suppose you could alter live broadcasts, but it turns out there was a 17-second delay going on.
You know, I said that. I said there's got to be some delays. There's too many tricks I know about just from being in the broadcast business. And that's the way you manipulate it so that you, at home out there, don't get it all. Here's the only place I know of that this exists is on his website.
Yeah. Go to 911scholars.org and go to the press releases. Now, let me just say, if somebody wants to understand 9/11 and what's going on there, if they just read through those press releases, and I think we got, I don't know, there might be as many as 20, but they're all relatively short. If you're willing to, spend 5 minutes on 20 pieces in a couple hours, you're going to understand 9/11. But this latest is a piece about the video fakery and multiple forms of proof we have now, Bill, that it was going on 9/11. It's very scary because it means the media was deeply involved in this.
We're going to take a break. We'll come right back. We're going to take your phone calls. And, Jim, I'll put you on hold so you can hear our audience and their questions, and then we'll come back to you and get the answers.
Chris?
Bill Boshears, Channel 38, and Jim Fitzer tonight. My guest, Jim, this weekend, next weekend, is having a conference. Where's it at, quickly?
It's at the Madison in Madison, Wisconsin.
Now, you can go to the website, 911scholars.org, and find out all about it. It's there.
That's right.
Jim, I'm going to put you on hold, and we're going to work this first time we've done this, so I'll put you on hold, and you can hear the question, and then we'll drop the caller and come back to you, and you can answer them.
Got it.
All right, here we go. Let's go to Annette on line 3. Annette, are you there, dear?
I sure am, honey.
Well, go right ahead, dear.
Well, I want to know why in the world Bush has borrowed all this money from the Chinese, robbed their Social Security box for the Iraqi war, and they fulfill every prophecy for all the evangelical right of Deuteronomy, Isaiah, Corinthians, a man of prey from the Far East, and he lends to you, you don't lend to him. And is there something with coil and detonating all this stuff?
All right, we'll get to it. I'll take your answer. Please take your answer off air. Jim, you get that?
Well, Tesla was an originator of research in electromagnetic fields and figured out ways in which it could be channeled and directed, so that he provided the general theoretical framework for a lot of current developments in the field of lasers, masers, and related areas. So we strongly suspect that weapons in this general family were used on 9/11 to bring about the massive destruction, including the wholesale pulverization of the Twin Towers and all kinds of weird effects that were made on the surrounding buildings. There weren't just the two towers. There were actually 7 buildings in the World Trade Center. And buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6 have very strange effects that appear to have been brought about by some kind of directed energy weapon. So we think that may be the key to understanding what actually happened there.
Good question ahead of it. But you know, Jim, I'll put you back on hold. And we're going to go to Don. Don, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. Hi, Jim, and hi, Bill.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
This kind of concerns me because the implications are that this is on the highest level down.
Yep, sure does.
I mean, how many branches of the government would it take to be involved in such a,
Well, if you go back, and we're going to do that in the next segment here,
okay.
We're going to go back, Don, and look at the Northwoods document.
Okay.
And once you understand that document and know that, you got to know that it exists, and I believe Jim's got it or knows about it. It may be listed on his website. I'm going to let you go and go back to Jim and get his answer, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jim, what was that?
Well, in response to this question, most of those who were involved didn't have any idea that they were involved in what would turn out to be 9/11. They had a role to play. They could be pilots. They could be doing an intercept. They could be air traffic controllers. They could be at the Pentagon. They could have been wherever, just doing their thing. They wouldn't know that they were actually responding or fulfilling the role of little tiny pieces in a very complicated puzzle.
Jim, not many people knew that they were actually having a military exercise that... but go ahead.
Webster Tarpley has identified that there were as many as 15 different exercises going on that morning in order to, it was like a patchwork quilt, I think. They had 5 basic exercises. Dick Cheney was in charge in an underground bunker.
Oh, brilliant tactician.
Webster Tarpley, in his book 9/11 Synthetic Terror Made in the USA, in the introduction to the new edition, has enumerated as many as 15. So I think that what they had found was that the 5 basic stand-down or terrorist drill plans that were going to bring about confusion and disconnect the ordinary operating procedure with the FAA and NORAD had to be filled in some gaps so that you would actually have some honest-to-God responses. I remember when I was in Florida when Payne Stewart, the golfer's plane, was not in communication with the ground. They had a jet aircraft up there within 20 minutes.
Within 20 minutes, they were all over him like smoke.
Yeah, that's right. It was still in Florida airspace, and then they allowed the plane just to fly. They discovered he'd had decompression, and they all had died from oxygen deprivation.
You know, Jim, when I sit there, and as I know all this now, and I know about the Northwoods document, it really makes sense. You got Cheney in a bunker, and you got W sitting in a classroom way out of range.
Way down at Booker School in Sarasota, and I used to live not far from the school where he was.
Is that right?
Situated, Bill. And he said one of the most interesting remarks he made was he said when he saw that plane hit the first tower, he said, "Man, that was really a bad pilot."
Bad pilot.
And that's so revealing, Bill, because nobody knew there was even any footage of the first hit on the North Tower.
And he said, we saw that earlier. He said, we saw the first.
He said he saw it. And the only time you would ever form an impression like that is if you actually saw it hit the North Tower before a plane hit the South Tower. Because once it hit the South Tower, this is some kind of coordinated effort.
Exactly.
So it means he had to have access to some closed-circuit television that was set on the North Tower. The Secret Service had to know what was going on, too. So your caller's right. I mean, if I have to identify the people who are the principals here, they appear to be Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Donald Feith, Paul Wolfowitz, Condoleezza Rice, General Richard Myers, Larry Silverstein, and Rudy Giuliani. Those appear to be the key players in the administration.
But will we ever get a way to prove it? I think we will.
Well, I think we have lots of ways to prove it. We've not only been able to demonstrate that every major claim the government has made about 9/11 is false, And if you want an introduction, go to 911scholars.org and flip on Why Doubt 9/11, where you'll find about 20 reasons that are laid out there how we know what the government's been telling us is false. But we also have, for example, direct testimony from Norman Mineta, our Secretary of Transportation, who was in that underground bunker with Cheney.
Right.
Who saw a young man come up to him, an aide come up to him and say, "Sir, it's 50 miles out. Sir, it's 30 miles out. Sir, it's 10 miles out. Does the order still stand?" Cheney turned on him and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?"
And that's my point. When he made that, he wasn't talking about a drill, and he knew the difference. He knew the drill was going on.
This is a plane coming toward the Pentagon, and evidently Cheney's enforcing a stand-down order. I mean, after all, the aide wouldn't have been concerned if the order was to shoot it down. They knew these planes were being used as weapons. If you shoot it down, you lose the passengers in the plane, but you don't also lose the personnel and the property of the target.
Exactly. You don't lose everything.
To shoot it down, Bill, it would have been shot down. The Pentagon may be the most heavily fortified building in the world.
Well, apparently
allowed
not.
to proceed. Actually, that whatever it was, that may have not been a Boeing 757. This is very complicated, but another aircraft that actually hit the building. But at the very least, it demonstrates Dick Cheney knew that a plane was coming to the Pentagon, and there was a pilot in a C-130 circling above who also saw the plane coming, as he told the BBC when they ran a special about 9/11.
Jim, well, let's take a pause in the action right here. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this quick message. We're back. I'm Bill Boshears. This is the Scizone Late Night Television Live right here in Cincinnati. Channel 38. Tell your friends about us. And my guest is Jim Fitzer. He is the founder, and I guess, Jim, you're the chief bottle cook and bottle washer of,
That's right, Bill.
of 911scholars.org. He's the man who gets the job done. He's the one that makes the rubber meet the road. That's it. Jim, what I'm going to do, we've got a couple of callers here. I'm going to take them, like before. I'll put you on hold, and then we'll go to Marcia and Robin and the rest of them, all right?
Got it, Bill.
Stay right there. Let's go to Marsh. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead, sir.
All right. First of all, I watch your show every week, so...
You're the guy.
Thank you for making late-night TV entertainable. My question is, if you or Jim have ever read the Left Behind series. It's a Christian fiction series created by Tim LaHaye.
I have not read it. I have heard about it, but I have not taken the time to do that, sir, to be honest with you.
It's a very good series, very well written, and even if I wasn't Christian, I'd probably still read it. But anyway, in one of the books, actually all the world leaders of this New World Order conveniently get out of areas that are attacked in the prelude to World War III. And as you guys have, as I've been listening tonight, and as you guys have been going on, I keep thinking back to that, and I'm just if maybe they're trying to set up like a New World Order type thing, and that's where this is going.
All right. I appreciate the call. Very update. Glad to have you. Tell your friends about us. We'll see you here next week. Don't go away.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Jim, you there?
Yeah.
You heard that.
Oh, sure. I think the idea of a New World Order is exactly part of the agenda. I mean, it seems to me to be very closely related to globalization and the idea for having corporations rule the world, but in this case it's corporations in collusion with the Bush administration.
Don't we call that a fascist government?
Well, that's right. When you have a merger of big business with big government, and the leader tends to be treated as identified with the state, so any criticism of the leader is treated as unpatriotic or even business.
And if you and I say anything, we'll be hauled off to some ghetto or some gulag or something.
I think that may not be too far in the
You know, you're right.
To tell you the truth.
You know what? This show may not be around long.
None of us who care about the country and who are critical of this administration, you know, when I was on O'Reilly, he told me, why did I hate my country? And he just demonstrated a stunning incapacity to separate criticism of the administration, the government that's doing so much harm.
By the way,
which I love.
That piece that you're talking about with Tim O'Reilly is on, I believe, 9/11, The Ripple Effect. You got to pick this up and get it.
True.
Stay right there. We got another call coming in here. Robin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead, dear.
Yes, thank you, Bill. And I also am a viewer every week and want to thank you for the show.
Well, thank you. We're glad to have you aboard every night.
Thank you. Well, my question was kind of taken by the gentleman before.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask the purpose behind all of this. Is it oil, or is it a one world order, or what exactly is it? But even beyond that, what can we, the average Joe, the common guy, do about all of this?
Here we go. Now we're really going to get serious. You know what I do? And I'll jump in here ahead of Jim. Become an independent. Just go down and register for an independent. And vote that way. After all...
Them, though, Bill. I mean, it seems like the politicians are all controlled by the...
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's the way they get their money. It's all about big money. Robin, thank you. Don't be shy. Stick around. Be there, all right?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, dear. Jim, I think she's awful close to it, don't you?
Yeah, well, just to elaborate on the motives, I mean, oil is number one, highest priority. Dick Cheney's talked forever about how the Iraqi oil is the real prize because it's high quality and easy to extract, very, very cheap to get out of the ground, and then you can sell it for a huge profit.
Well, let me tell you something else I found out. Some of the countries around there, and they shall remain nameless right now, I've heard it from the Middle East said that they're pumping sludge.
Well, I don't know, Bill. I don't know what to make of that. Israel, obviously, weakening other states that could potentially exert political influence to rival Israel has been another major aspect. I mean, we're Israel's lackey in the Middle East. We're doing their bidding. And third, of course, is this scheme for a worldwide empire, an American empire, provided by these neoconservatives, many of whom were on the list I enumerated earlier of those responsible for 9/11, where they wanted to create domination of the world by the United States, especially through technology. This is something called full spectrum dominance that you heard me mention that Bob Fitrakis is talking about, which means not only the dominance of air, land, and sea, but also space. Bob Bowman, who was the scientific director of the Star Wars research program under two administrations, who has a PhD in nuclear engineering from Caltech, recently acknowledged during a public speech that the Star Wars program was always intended to be offensive, not merely defensive. Although it was sold to the American people on other ground.
I don't know if we're going to take a break now or not. Do you guys want to take, somebody tell me, let's take a break. We'll come right back after this. We've got more to do in your phone calls right here. Don't go away.
Was the result of an incendiary device, how does that fit into a terrorist hijacking scenario at all? And if, as Colonel Nelson has proposed, there was extra equipment attached to the belly of the plane that hit the South Tower, how could that have been United Airlines Flight 175 or any other commercial airliner for that matter? Keep in mind that these planes disappeared for nearly a half an hour, surely enough time to substitute a drone in place of commercial aircraft, as was proposed in the 1962 Northwoods document.
One of the scenarios in Operation Northwoods was to take a regularly scheduled commercial airliner and take a similar type plane, paint the tail numbers up to resemble that of the commercial airliner, fly it by remote control out over the Caribbean, and by remote control blow it up after sending a tape-recorded message saying, "Help, we're being attacked by Cuban MiGs." This was in 1962. I think we had a very sophisticated, more modern version of that plan happen on September the 11th, 2001.
We're back. I'm Bill Boshears. This is the Scizone. My guest is Jim Fetzer. Jim, we're going to put you on hold and go right. By the way, that was a Northwood clip that we just ran. Jim, you had a comment about the Northwoods operation document.
Yes. Well, Operation Northwoods was a scheme, of course, to create phony reasons to attack Cuba if there weren't legitimate ones. Eisenhower suggested to Lyman Lemnitzer, who was then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that was the thing to do, and Lemnitzer took it seriously and came up with a lot of harebrained proposals, such as if the Atlas rocket carrying John Glenn into space were to blow up, they'd have irrefutable evidence that Castro had done it. The only way I can see that could be arranged is if the U.S. were blowing it up themselves. Another was to load a commercial airliner full of college students on a holiday, fly them over Cuba, and shoot them down. They said in the fine print that they land at a secret base and offload the students and fill it with dummies. But can you imagine one of these live students showing up in the United States or one of these dummies in Cuba? In fact, they talked about how the list of casualties would inflame the American people and insist that the military rise up and crush Cuba. JFK was having William Westmoreland vet all these things, and he was turning them all down, which got the chiefs very disenchanted. They came to believe that Jack Kennedy was part of the problem of resisting international communism, not the solution.
It cost him his life, and now you know that Northwoods document is still in play, and it's, Jim, do you have that on your website?
Well, I'm sure it's discussed several places, Bill, but the real source for anyone who wants to be serious about it is James Bamford's book, Body of Secrets.
Yeah, Body of Secrets.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what.
He is NSA, but he tripped across all this stuff.
He's a hell of an author. Stay right there, Jim. Put you on hold. Let's go to Henry on 3. You're there, sir.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
All right. I heard we're talking about Israel here. We've got that is coming to play.
It was mentioned here earlier. Go ahead.
Mentioned. Okay. This is what I think. I think we got Israel here, right? That's where Jesus lived. Jesus was an alien. Jesus had the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail wasn't, I mean, everyone calls it the Holy Grail. They think it's the cup that he sipped out of. I think it is actually the secret to eternal energy. So then we've got the Crusades coming into Israel, Christians, Knights Templar, finding this Holy Grail, putting it inside of the Ark of the Covenant, taking it back, and from there, the Skull and Bones fraternity, right? They came from the Knights Templar, and we've also got the Freemasons. They also had alien contact, and so they are.
Wait. Let me ask you a question. Where did you get that part about the Masons knowing about and had alien contact? Where did you get that?
Oh well, I mean, you know, if you look at any of their architecture and stuff like that. It's
okay. I appreciate the call. Thank you.
Incredibly well.
Yeah. While I got that done, why don't I go right to line 4? Is it Tony? Go ahead.
Yes, darling. I've been with you since week number 1.
Okay.
We're talking about monetary.
We're talking about monetary, yes.
Yes. What does your guest feel about investing in gold and silver as a hedge against his? Well, our dollar's worth 73 cents.
If it's that.
Euro dollar, which is Nazi Germany, the head of the European Union.
Okay. I appreciate it. I'll see what he says. Jim, you're there.
Well, I've never understood if gold and silver are such fantastic investments and the only really solid investment, why anyone would ever sell it.
Why would, I mean...
Why are they selling it, Bill, if this is the greatest thing since sliced bread? You know?
I mean, I'd hang on to it.
Now, there's something funny about the monetary system, though, because these Bush people want to turn the United States into a component of a North American Union, a merger with Canada and Mexico, where you have this consolidated economic entity where national sovereignty becomes relatively meaningless with a uniform currency called the Amiro.
Yes.
And several commentators have noticed that the Canadian dollar right now is worth about 98 cents American, and that the peso is worth about 10 pesos to the American dollar, which makes it a good time for conversion to the Amuro, and I'm just very suspicious. You know, we have this extra constitutional recreation of the country going on, and none of the politicians seem to know anything about it.
It's kind of like, here it is, and the politicians are going, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. What the hell do they do?
I don't know, Bill, but they aren't earning their keep, I'll tell you. They're a complete and utter waste, if you ask me.
Waste of time, money, and effort.
Taking over the country and turning it inside out, and the politicians aren't doing a damn thing to protect us.
I found out why they call him W. He can spell it. You know, Jim, I really, honest to God, thought that at some point in our life, that you and I would see free energy, or that we would see a health policy for health care for people, or that we could possibly see peace. We haven't seen anything. All we've seen is nothing. If anything has created, we had a meltdown this week of the stock market. We lost, are you ready? Jim, I had no idea how many people lost on this, but get this, $526 billion. There are people all over this country that had stocks, and they're wiped out.
Yeah, I know, it's not good, Bill.
And the housing market is on its keisters.
Yep.
And we're worried about, I don't know what he's worried about tonight.
And he's got the country under surveillance, and he's got powers that he can now take away your property if you criticize the war.
We're going to take a break, and we'll get done criticizing this. Jim, don't go away. We'll take your calls right after this, right here in the Scizone. I'm Bill Lozier. I got to tell you, there's never a dull moment in the zone, folks. So join me every Saturday night. This gets better. It does. About 1 o'clock, they all get here. Anyway, Jim, you wanted to add something to what you said a second ago. Go ahead.
Yes, well, the one caller asked a very appropriate question about what can be done to resist this,
good question.
This monstrous behavior by the administration. And in particular, I would say the possibility that they might pull another false flag operation by, say, bombing a port, for example, maybe out in Los Angeles or San Francisco, maybe in Oakland Bay. I can think of a lot of reasons why they might find that very tempting politically. That's Nancy Pelosi's district. What better way to humiliate her and bring her around?
I hope she's in there when they do that.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's like
I don't want to have her no bad luck, you understand?
Sending the anthrax to Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy, right, just because they wanted to hold hearings on the Patriot Act. I say, if you can write letters to the editor, if you can get these DVDs out, get them on maybe your community access television.
Exactly.
Talk to people. Let them know you're worried about there being another false flag operation. The more people know, the less likely it is to happen.
Jim, put you on hold. And there's one line open here if you want to jump in. Let's go to Nate. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead. You got it.
I want to say thank you so much for bringing into the limelight all the issues that you guys are bringing up. You know, your show is just, it's good to see this stuff coming out. And I wanted to just say you guys are doing a great job with all that. But now I wonder, with the Dick Cheney angle, the government having a hand in the whole 9/11 thing, do you think that he just hadn't come up with the I thought it was a bird when I pulled the trigger? Defense yet?
Boom. Oh, that was you. I could see him just turning and shooting somebody. He's that, you know, boom. Oh, gee. Well, I thought you was a bird. Good point, Nate. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
And Jim, do you think he thought it was a bird?
Well, you know, I think Alex Jones went out there with a similar shotgun and found for the pattern that was on that guy's face, Cheney had to have shot him from about 17 feet away.
And he still missed.
Apparently, this is a usual kind of outing. They're out there drinking and carousing with women other than their wives and having a real good time.
Oh, yeah. And in her book, Transformation of America, he actually hunted humans, and Kathy O'Brien was one of the women that he hunted.
hey, you know this D.C. Madam case? They turned up with Cheney's number, and he said, yeah, when he was the head of Halliburton, that he used to, you know.
Well, you know, fellas got to have a place to eat. I mean, it's got to have a restaurant to go to. Hey, I mean, you know,
I mean, those $100 billion no-bid contracts, those are tough to administer.
Well, Bill Clinton never went out, but Dick Cheney does anyway.
Well,
I want you to wind us up here and talk a little bit about, we'll close this up here. We'll run out of time here. Give them a place where they can find about the conference next week. Is there a telephone number they can call?
Yeah, go to 911scholars.org, and you're going to find not only a complete description, but contact information. And just realize that if you want to understand the war, you got to understand the origins of the war, which
Absolutely.
were in 9/11. Even these neocons, in advancing their proposal for a worldwide empire, realized that the American people would be very reluctant to support wars of aggression and to make the kind of financial and personal sacrifice involved.
Exactly.
Unless there were some traumatic catalyzing event that would make them think they were under attack by a foreign power, such as a new Pearl Harbor. So this all appears to have been carefully staged. Just realize how frequently these people manipulate us. Remember, in relation to the first Gulf War, a young Kuwaiti girl went before Congress, and she started in tears seeing these young babies dumped out of incubators by Iraqi soldiers in hospitals in Kuwait. It turned out later, Bill, that she was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador. She'd never been to the hospital, and she'd been coached by a Republican public relations firm to make this emotional appeal, which, of course, affected a lot of us at the time. I'm just saying,
Jim,
these are very shabby people, Bill.
Very, very. Jim, I'll let you go. I appreciate you being here. We'll do it again.
My great pleasure, Bill.
You got it, my friend. Take care.
Bye.
You know, the real deal is this. I hope everybody's happy they voted for George Bush. I didn't. You got to be embarrassed. God, the man needs help. He needs help going back to Crawford. Get him out. I don't care how you do it. Send him a note, tell him go home. That won't work. You know it, and I do too. Every week we do the same thing here. Not same thing, it's the unusual. This is unusual. Your politics are getting more unusual every day. People that you trust, you elected them to trust. You can't. 70–80% of the people in the United States today do not trust their government. Is it any wonder that they don't? Based on the Republicans, based on the Democrats, you guys are electing because they got money. You ought to try electing them for brains. You ought to try to, you just ought to look at them real close before you decide to run them for president. You have elected some real winners over the past couple of decades. See you next week right here. Don't miss it. Channel 38.